Well, welcome back, you scurvy, salty sons of, pirates. Ever so glad you could join me here once again today for more of our oceanic adventures. As you well know, we've been turning this little podunk pirate town into a proper city, a global hub for all things privateering and pirating. And so, that's what we're going to begin doing today again. Although, I must say that our first little construction project here has less to do with us becoming a proper city, although we are expanding, of course, with this building, and more to do with us prepping for a land invasion against our enemies, the Brits. This, my friends, is going to be something of a stable area, I guess you could say, for our bears. A proper place for us to house, facilitate, and also train our bears. One might even call it a bear training facility. As a matter of fact, I would call it that. And at the center of preparing these bears for battle and training them up however we see fit is going to be our bounty hunter slave king. Now I hear you, why would we choose our bounty hunter slave for such an important job? Well, these quote-unquote tamed bears are still pretty darn wild, so if anybody needs to get eaten by them, we thought he the best option. And he also has a pretty decent animal skill, so it shouldn't take him very long at all to get them trained up with a little help from some delicious kibble, of course. But as King is helping prepare our army of war bears, we have even more construction to do, this time around the horn of our little isle. This little horn also just so happens to be right next to our main dock where we keep all of our ships. Now, of course, it is going to be pretty well protected by our ships, but if, say, for example, our fleet is not within the area or nearby, we're going to need some proper defenses, and thus why we would end up building a defensive fortification, you could call it, coming equipped with a singular cannon to fire at any enemy ships, of course, and also some sleeping bags and other basic amenities for someone who may have guard duty that night. A massive thanks to our friends Gravity Gamer and Wodon85 for this wonderful suggestion of a fortification to protect our shoreline. When fighting enemies like the British with the most powerful navy in history on the planet, it's going to come in handy, no doubt, if and when they decide to try to take their naval forces into this area. Now then, since our trading industry is growing exponentially, I thought over by our trading dock, since we do have a lot of people docking and doing, well, trading and bartering, as mentioned several times there, a little bit too repetitively, I'd say, we are also going to be building something of an inn. That way merchants can stay here and they can pay us a very small fee to do so. That way, since we already have them coming in, we're at least making a little bit of money off of them. You'll notice in the back as well, we have a smaller place for some of their deckhands and their crew and people like that who don't exactly need the best rooms. People are always dying to do business with us, but if we're forcing these merchants to sleep out in a tent on a rainy night when there could be some high waters or even tsunamis or whatever, they might not be too interested in doing their selling here. And I feel that this is a great addition to essentially what is our trading district of the city at this point. By this point as well, some time had passed obviously, and we had finally recruited Layla and Nestor, the two British soldiers, into our ranks. Welcome aboard, folks. We'll need to throw together some proper black attire for them, but for now we're gonna need to send them into the armory to go ahead and equip some rifles and swords. Funny enough though, Nestor here is somebody that we've seen before, or at least that Ms. and also King has seen before, that is. Some of you may remember, but Nestor was actually one of the founding members along with King for his bounty hunting service. Now, as to why Nestor ended up becoming a soldier in the British Army, we're not exactly sure. But if I had to guess, I would say that there was some type of falling out between the two of them, and Nestor felt that his services were better elsewhere. He and King are the reason that Miz is missing her legs and has peg legs, but I suppose since Nestor's joined us, we'll let it slide. But we'll be keeping a close eye on you. In the meantime, though, by this point we have grown quite a few cotton plants, and it's time for us to harvest them and get plenty of cloth cloth. Since the French are our largest benefactor, I feel like it's time that we start kind of adjusting to their needs specifically, and in more particular terms, their military needs specifically. So that's exactly why we're going to be creating some French uniforms out of all of this cloth. That way we can sell it to them and make quite a profit. Unlike our onions and tobacco leaves and a few other things that we just sell straight after growing it in the ground, these actually require quite a bit of time to produce, though they are well worth it. As you can see, once we finally had one of our French trade caravans arriving on our island, we would end up trading some of these uniforms, not even all the ones that we made, in exchange for not only silver, but also some good medicine and plenty of different types of alcohols to wet our whistles with. Easy there, Hughes. I know you're almost 17 now, but it's best that you just sit back and watch Mommy polish off this vodka. It'll put you on your arse pretty quick. Looks like our little merchant inn is getting some pretty good use as well, and we're also turning a little profit from it. Not that that really matters, of course, but there's no doubt they'll still be enjoying their stay a lot more. Now then, with our land invasion coming up, I thought it might be pretty useful if we had some of our own weapon technology. So we're going to begin researching some Steam World Melee, which will unlock quite a few different types of swords and other weapons for us to smith. Lickety-split, Maker would get right to work on it, and in the meantime, while he's researching, we would start building ourselves yet another little defensive tower over by the harbor. Because, well, naturally, the only thing that's better than one cannon tower to defend our little dock here is two cannon towers to defend our little dock here, so, that's what we did. By the time we'd finished up with that, we had also finished our research into Steam World Melee. It didn't take very long at all for Maker to wrap his brain around how to smith a few swords, as I'm sure you could imagine. And with some plastil lying around in our warehouse, as well as this brand new knowledge in hand, Maker would begin smithing the first of what we hope to be many a saber. Being made of plastil, this is going to be a very durable sword that will have a very sharp edge, I might add. Of course, we don't plan on giving all of our pirates a saber made of plastil. That wouldn't be very practical. This one in particular will be for Ms. herself. Such a beautiful and elegant weapon with a Commodore to match as its owner. Now that that's taken care of, we're also going to commission a brand new trading vessel to be built. A much larger trading vessel, I might add. This is going to be our very first galleon ship. And as you can see, compared to our cog, she is a great big bruiser of a ship. Not only in size, I might add, but also in cargo, as the galleon can actually carry up to 2,000 kilograms compared to the 500 kilograms of the mule, the cog ship that we currently have, which is about a 4 times difference. And at the helm of this bad boy is going to be Hughes. We are going to be letting Martin go with him, of course, on a trade mission. As per the usual, these two are growing quite fond of each other on these little trips, but Hughes this time around is going to genuinely be at the helm, and if he does well on this trade mission, Ms. might just give her little adopted boy here a ship of his own. We're going to be taking off quite a few French uniforms to a nearby French village, as well as taking the rest of our cloth to our nearby tribal allies to do some trading with them, as well as staying in everyone's good graces, yada yada yada, making some money, you know how it is. As the two of them were setting sail on the new ship, meanwhile back home everything was hunky-dory. Until it wasn't. We were about to be fighting the largest British raid that we had ever seen. Now, if this isn't a sure sign that we need to get rid of that damn outpost as soon as possible, I'm not sure what is. You may notice that not all of these soldiers are your typical standard line units. Some of these soldiers have some type of hand cannon, no doubt very similar to a hand mortar, but firing much larger and more explosive shells, no doubt. Without a shred of hesitation, we would rush to defend our city. And so came the massive onslaught of enemies like a charging bull. We had primed our cannons and were firing at them them as they were coming in, trying to stop them, or at least as many as humanly possible, before they got to us. But eventually, the overwhelming odds would make their way towards us, and we would have to stand our ground here and now. Even if we wanted to, which we didn't, there would be no surrender nor backing down. The Brits were out for blood, but as were we. And I'm afraid to say, but there would be gallons upon gallons of blood spilt here today. But this was not the time to mourn our plasteel night, for the Brits were still breaking our lines and coming right into the city itself. Though their feet would shift in the sands, and slowly but surely they were being pushed back, our pirates would continue standing their ground against our enemies. And with much more time, violence, and bloodshed, we would eventually begin making the Brits flee the city itself. We would continue trying to kill as many as possible as they were fleeing, that way we wouldn't have to deal with them once we invade their outpost later on. But a lot of them ended up getting away, I'm afraid. That's an issue for the future, though. For now, we have other priorities at the moment, such as making sure that everyone doesn't bleed out, including the Commodore, as well as ensuring that our sacred city walls do not burn to the ground, along with what's left of our defenses at the entrance here. Once the flames were extinguished, with a little bit of help from Mother Nature herself, we had also noticed that we had lost Aloe during the battle. A piercing shot through his side that appeared to hit both of his lungs. Oh, Aloe, you poor big ginger lug, a loyal trooper until the very end. We had also ended up taking prisoner many of the soldiers of our enemies, of course, so many in fact that our teeny tiny prison was overwhelmed, and we had to start making some room on the floor in our entranceway for a couple more of them. They had taken 2 of our privateers. The least that we could do is take many, and I do mean many, of them straight to hell, but also take about 4 or 6 or so of their own and convert them into more privateers. Once we had tended to all of our wounds and we could ensure that no one was going to bleed to death anymore, and once we finally got the entranceway here cleaned up, it was time for us to start repairing and reconstructing. With all of this completed, though, there was but one thing left for us to do. Our 2 poor pirates, valiant warriors, deserve a proper burial at sea. Some odd hours later, and Martin and Hughes had finally arrived at the tribal settlement to trade off what remained in our cargo, which was basically just our cloth. But interestingly enough, the tribespeople actually had a few people here that we could purchase out of slavery, essentially buying them their freedom, if they were willing to join our privateering efforts. As you could imagine, the more the merrier. We quickly forked over the silver and started sailing back home, which this time around wouldn't take us near as long since we have an empty cargo hold except for our new privateers and a ton of silver. We've had a rough run these last few days, but something tells me this silver might begin to lift everyone's spirits just a little. Well then, I suppose our next step is going to be arming and training these yellow bellies here for some proper combat with the British. And boy, do we look forward to that. Now that everyone's back home, we should have just enough manpower for some constructing. It's time for us to fix that little overcrowding issue that we're having in our other prison by building a smaller one just above our little slave residential district that we built. This will be helping us out in many ways, and one such way is getting them recruited faster. Now that they're not shoulder to shoulder crammed in the same little rooms, sorta, kinda, they should want to join us a good bit more. Since we've started losing many of our pirates during these battles, it feels like that we should have some type of celebration for them, or even some type of day of remembrance for them. So we're actually going to be creating a holiday known as a Day of Memoriam starting today, May the 2nd. That way we could go ahead and immediately celebrate and honor the sacrifices that our brave pirating privateers have made for us. For they would not want us to be sad with our heads in our hands crying many tears. They would want us up and dancing and drinking and gambling the night away. And hey, we would even give our alligators a little treat. Aw, you like that, buddy? I bet it's soft and tasty, huh? Nice and tender. Now then, moving on once more to some city building. In the northeastern section of the city above our residential district, we are going to be building ourselves a makeshift hospital, I suppose is what you could call it. A ye olde pirate hospital, if nothing else. As you can see, we have 4 rooms with 3 beds each, and also just a small end table with a lantern on it. That way, any tending we do is well lit, and that way we can have the best quality outcome for said tending, and just this way we don't have overcrowding in everyone's homes, and we're not getting blood everywhere, and yada yada yada. However, on the left side of the building, you may notice a small little workshop, which is kind of strange at first glance, I suppose, but this is actually going to be a prosthetic workshop where we'll be making many a thing like artificial hands and hook hands and arms and legs and so on and so forth, as well as eye patches. Given our occupation, this is something that's much needed, as demonstrated here by our friend Rock, who recently lost her eye in the last battle. Hang in there, old girl, we'll get a patch for that scarred up eye soon enough. Now then, as you can see, we also have our first little baby grizzly bear. Aw, isn't it cute? And deadly. But that does remind me that we need some names for these bears. Starting off, we're going to be naming our male grizzly bear Papa Bear and our female, yes, you guessed it, Mama Bear. Now, at the time of these names being suggested, we didn't have a baby bear yet, but baby bear seems pretty fitting to me. Great name suggested by our great friend Lockwone01, and I also agree with you about getting some other races, and that's why I think currently we mostly have humans and impids, but we recently purchased somebody's freedom who happens to be a Neanderthal. I'm trying here, you know, I'm trying to branch out a little bit as much as I can. And I also think that it's a bit hilarious that Yumi ended up being a pacifist, a little bit of a letdown there. Now then, we've been expanding our bear army and expanding our city, but something we haven't expanded in quite a while is our fleet of caravel. And that's exactly why we're adding this brown beauty into our fleet. One ship larger, slowly but surely, we will be conquering these seas. As for the name of this big old vessel, we're going to be naming her the Green Ogre. And we'll also be giving her a pretty little paint job to match. And this suggestion comes from our friend Frog Mood, who suggested not only the ship's paint job, but also the name, so thank you ever so much as well. If you guys have any ship name suggestions, remember to leave them in the comment section down below. Much appreciated. But who's going to be at the helm of this brand new vessel, you might ask? Well, if it isn't the young lad Hughes. If you remember earlier on, I said if he'd done real well with that trade mission he and Martin went on before, he might just get a vessel of his own from Mama here. No thanks necessary, son. I've actually already thought of a way that you could repay me. You can take this ship and maybe say the Blooming Onion with a small crew and go find us a bit of plunder, okay? And so they would set sail, but of course their journey would take quite a bit of time, so we'll check back in on them in a moment. Back at the city, we're working on a brand new recreational building. Now, of course, we do have our tavern, but we need somewhere where we're not just going to drink, and that's mostly all we're doing. We need somewhere to go out for a night on the town to have some fun, and somewhere that maybe some more of our sober guests might be interested in hanging out while they're in the city. Now, this is somewhere that they could play billiards or darts until their heart's desire all night long, or perhaps even a bit of roulette as Nestor's hitting the keys on the piano, playing a pretty little tune. As we were putting the finishing touches on this new building, though, a new addition to the city, it would seem that Hughes and the others have found something of a tribal impid village. An unusual location for it, as it is in a contested territory, but nonetheless, we decided to approach and see if they might have anything interesting here for us to take. As we sailed our ships up the river at the surprise of many an impid, even from the river we ended up spotting some gold. It would appear that maybe they've been panning this river based on the current equipment that they're using in search of these riches. Now they have our attention. Now, it's not much, of course, panning the river for gold. There's hardly even a few bars here, I would say, but I think Mama will be tickled, huh? Now, the real fun can begin, the absolute and utter bombardment of this pathetic little village. As bad as we hate to have to waste our cannonballs on something so small, it's the best that we could find for the time being. Besides, we need that gold so much more than these filthy impids, do we not? As we continued our bombardment, after a little bit of time, nothing was really left in this village except for a large smoldering pile of ash and rubble, and its tribal inhabitants realized that this was their cue to skedaddle. Can't say I blame them, really. And I can tell you, as we set foot on the shoreline in this smoldering, burning city, how nice it was to stretch our legs for a little bit. We've been sailing for far too long. Looks like at the very least we'll have a good little meal for the trip back home, and we ended up getting that gold that we were talking about. Actually ended up being about 100 gold and maybe about 30 silver, I think, so not too shabby for his first little voyage. I'm sure his mama and the rest of the crew are going to be damn proud of him. We might make a captain out of Hughes just yet, though he still has a long road ahead before that's the case. Meanwhile, back home, I have yet to show you. I've been neglecting to show you because I wanted to keep it as a surprise, but we have recruited basically every single one of those British soldiers that we took prisoner about a month or so ago, making our crew about 6 people larger, which is huge growth, the largest growth that I think we've seen yet. It genuinely is a great start, but I feel that we still need quite a few more people before we can truly get a land invasion going against the British outpost on the island. This is something that I hope to achieve next episode, and will most likely be our final episode in this series. Not to worry though, I think we'll be continuing the universe, as long as you guys like it, that is. Now then, something that we haven't done in quite a while is some research, and this time around we are going to be looking into liquor brewing. Every pirate needs some alcohol in their system, unless of course they're sober, which is rarely the case. So we are going to be finishing up this research to give ourselves the ability to make many a different type of liquor. However, even so, there are many different types of stills and many different types of alcohol, so we're going to need a great big place to go about making all these different types. And that is why in the northwestern section of the city we are going to be building a great big distillery. Absolutely massive. As we're working on the new distillery though, our caravan with Hughes and the others had finally returned home with what little riches that they brought back with him, and indeed everyone was very happy and very proud. But not only was there new plunder to ponder about, but also new love. It would seem that Martin has courted Hazel by complimenting her abilities. My, oh my, you sly dog, you Martin. Well, we'll need to try to build them their very own little home. I think that they've earned it. They're basically founding members of this pirate crew along with Miz herself, and perhaps if we give them their own home, they'll even have some pirate babies for us, the first. We'll have to wait and see about that though. As you can see though, we have finally finished up our distillery, which has many different types of stills already in it, some of the more simple ones like a gin still, and some of the more complicated ones like a whiskey still. On the outside I also have some spaces so that we can go about growing hops and potatoes and other different types of vegetables that are going to be required to make the mushes and mashes for all these alcohols. But this entire distillery is an idea from our good friend Matthew Grayling. I can't believe I had never even considered making one of these in our pirate city, for God's sake, but I'm glad that you did, Matthew, so thank you for that. I believe that this mod actually has rum in it, and we just need to do a bit more research, so we will get around to specifically making that, and if not, we'll add a mod, of course. But my friends, our city is coming along very nicely, and to be honest with you, it's almost complete. I'm thinking we may expand our growing zones a bit, especially with our growing population, but if you guys have any suggestions as to what you would like to see in the city in terms of our buildings and stuff, stuff, feel free to leave that in the comment section down below, and we'll try to get it next episode, which, remember, is most likely going to be our last episode, simply in this pirate series, I suppose. We'll definitely be coming back to this universe, because it does seem like you guys really enjoy it, and hell, I do too. It's really fun. So it won't be the last that we actually see of our city. This is more of just setting us up as a huge faction for this universe, I suppose. But until next time, stay scurvy, baby.